General Hospital spoilers suggest that Jocelyn Jacks and Britt Westbourne are preparing for an unexpected confrontation. The undercover operation at the Five Poppies Resort may take an unexpected turn, so we should examine how things will unfold. Jack Brennan has assigned Jocelyn and Vaughn to masquerade as newlyweds, so they will spend 2 weeks at the resort performing this romantic ruse. The true purpose will be for Vaughn and Jocelyn to explore now that their mission has shifted away from Professor Henry Hank Dalton. There's certainly a lot more information to be discovered at this Dalmatian resort, which Jocelyn and Vaughn will investigate. Jocelyn never expected to see Britt during her stay at the Five Poppies. As far as Joss is concerned, Britt died a hero by saving her from Heather Weber's poisoned hook. That is why it will be a great surprise if Jocelyn meets Britt someplace on the property. It's easy to see Jocelyn dining with Vaughn at one of the resort's restaurants, then getting up to use the ladies' room. That might give Jocelyn the opportunity to run into Britt, possibly literally if GH wants to go soapy about it. Jocelyn might run across the woman who saved her life but is supposed to be dead, so she'll have a lot of questions. Of course, Britt will have her own questions if she discovers Jocelyn is reportedly on her honeymoon and under a false name. This might become a difficult scenario for both of them. So will Britt recommend keeping each other's secrets? Britt might vow that if Jocelyn claims she never saw her, she will stay quiet about seeing Joss there as well. Jocelyn could face serious consequences for withholding such important information from Brennan, but Britt may also have the potential to expose Jocelyn's cover and jeopardize her new position. Plus, Jocelyn owes Britt her life, so she may be tempted to remain quiet about this encounter if that is what Britt desires. If all of this happens without Vaughn present, Jocelyn might consider surrendering Britt her quiet. That being said, Jason Morgan is already striving to verify Britt's survival, and will have his own reunion with her shortly. According to General Hospital spoilers, Jocelyn could run into Jason at the resort next, so stay tuned for any disturbing news. General Hospital teasers indicate that a preview clip has been released for Monday, August 4, 2025. It depicts Jocelyn Jacks attempting to sell Carly Spencer a cover tale. Gio Palmieri confides in Emma Scorpio Drake. Ava Jerome has a new offer for Alexis Davis. Continue reading and let's discuss what's coming up on the ABC soap drama. Let us start with Jocelyn, who has been commanded by Jack Brennan to go on a trip with Vaughn. The agents will end up at the same resort as Britt Westbourne. Interestingly, Jason Morgan will also be visiting the resort. In a preview clip, Joss attempts to justify her unexpected leave of absence. The young woman tells her mother that the distance will allow her to find out what she wants. Brooke Lynn Quartermaine dumps another bombshell on Harrison Chase. Fans are aware that they have been unable to conceive and have considered adoption since the release of Gio. Read more. Find out what happened on the last episode of GH. Chase is excited to become a father. However, BLQ believes she cannot proceed with the adoption procedure until her situation with Gio is resolved. Chase explodes and subsequently confronts Gio. Gio Palmieri's secret General Hospital spoilers for Monday, August 4 state that the preview tape also features Gio urging Emma to keep something secret. Of course, Emma will agree and attempt to aid Gio. After all, he's been there for her. On Monday, August 4, 2025, fans will watch Rick Lansing ask someone what he can do for them. Meanwhile, Ava has extended a new proposition to Alexis. The blonde claims she is about to do the lawyer a tremendous service. So I'm wondering whether it's about taking Rick out of the blackmail. Christina Corinthos Davis sweetens the deal for Cody Bell. Christina appears to want Cody to do something drastic. However, he rejects, indicating that it is risky. Then Christina offers an additional $10,000. Cody complies to Christina's most recent request after hearing the dollar signs. However, I'm wondering how far Cody and Ava's conspiracy will go. Which narrative are you most looking forward to witnessing on Monday, August 4, 2025? The night air in Port Charles was thick with tension, as a storm moved in over the water and the city's shadows lengthened. Jocelyn Jacks walked hesitantly inside a nondescript structure near the outskirts of town, her adrenaline obscuring the horror that lurked beneath. She wasn't supposed to be here. This was never part of the plan. But something went awry, and she had to improvise. It began hours earlier, when Britt Westbourne called her unexpectedly. Their relationship was far from close. Britt had been Jocelyn's pseudo-enemy, a reluctant ally, and now something in between. But the voice on the other end of the phone had been strained and desperate. Britt needed someone who was not on the PCPD's radar. Someone having connections but no formal relationships. Jocelyn, defiant and desperate for action after months of feeling marginalized, agreed almost immediately. The strategy appeared easy enough. Britt had inserted herself deep within a thriving pharmaceutical smuggling gang. What began as a routine investigation had escalated into something far more dangerous. The boss, simply known as Carter, was vicious and unpredictable. Britt had obtained evidence, shipment data, contact information, and possibly even the location of a critical lab. She merely needed help getting out. But when Jocelyn arrived at the agreed-upon spot, everything felt off. The lights in the warehouse were flickering. The alleyway was vacant. There was no sign of Britt, just a faint hum from a generator and the metallic creak of a loading bay door swinging in the breeze. Jocelyn grabbed the little recorder she'd packed and tucked it beneath her jacket before slipping inside. Britt was already inside, but not in the way Jocelyn had anticipated. She was bleeding, breathing heavily, and chained to a metal chair in the center of the room. Her eyes widened as she noticed Jocelyn, and she shook her head angrily. However, before Jocelyn could respond, the trap released. Two men emerged from the shadows, both armed and plainly not involved in any bluff. Carter was among them, a tall, slender man with lifeless eyes and a voice that pierced the silence like a razor. "You've brought a child?" he remarked, smirking. "She isn't even trained, is she?" Jocelyn remained silent. Her thoughts raced. Her sole advantage was that they weren't expecting her. She didn't seem like a threat. But Britt, she was the objective. And if Jocelyn was to get them both out alive, she'd need to employ all of her cunning. Carter approached, crouched in front of Britt. "You thought you could outsmart me," he said quietly. "What about the small flash disk you handed your friend? It's a fake. Do you believe we didn't know?" Britt spit blood and muttered, "You are terrified. That's why you tied me up." He laughed and said nothing. One of the guys came behind Jocelyn, grabbing her arm and tugging her closer. The chamber smelled of chemicals and dust, the type of place where horrible things happened and no one asked questions. She looked to Britt, who mouthed something quietly. "The power box. Behind you." Jocelyn's heart pounded. She had one shot. Pretending to trip, she lurched toward the wall, her fingers brushing across a control panel. Her thumb located the emergency breaker, which she pulled. Sparks flew as the room became dark. What followed was chaos. Britt moved quickly even when bound. She kicked her chair backward, slamming into Carter's knees. Jocelyn dropped low, just avoiding a fist to her face, and reached into her coat for the mace canister she had taken from Trina's glove box weeks before. She sprayed blindly and hit one of the males in the eyes. His scream was shrill and fierce. In the chaos, Britt rolled to her side, screaming, "My ankle! There's a knife!" Jocelyn hurried to her, fumbling for the dagger hidden in Britt's boot lining. Her hands shook as she sawed the ropes. Carter stood behind them, shouting instructions, cursing, and firing blindly into the darkness. Eventually the ropes gave. Britt was free. They made a rush for the door. They dashed into the alley as sirens began to sound in the distance. Britt was hobbling but moving rapidly. Jocelyn half carried her, both of them soaked with perspiration and anxiety. They didn't stop running until they were 2 streets away from Jocelyn's car, gasping for air and smelling like burnt plastic. Inside the automobile, Britt collapsed into the passenger seat. "That was supposed to be simple," she exclaimed. "It's just a handoff." "I had no idea they'd find out," Jocelyn said, her hands trembling on the steering wheel. "You could have been killed," Britt told her, her attitude changing. There was thankfulness and worry. "You shouldn't have come." "I couldn't just let you die," Jocelyn exclaimed. "I'm not a kid anymore." "I know," Britt said. "That's the part that scares me." Back at GH, things did not calm down. The aftermath was intense. Jordan grilled them both for several hours. Britt made her statement, but excluded Jocelyn's involvement. "I was alone," she explained. "I never contacted anyone. The rest was luck." Jocelyn attempted to disagree, but Britt gave her a look. "I'm not going to allow you get sucked into this much deeper. You've already saved my life." However, Jocelyn was changing. This wasn't only about Britt. It was about something bigger. Her status in Port Charles, her power. About being bored of watching her family spiral as secrets pile up. Later, as the hospital quieted and the night gave way to morning, Jocelyn discovered Britt on the roof, gazing out at the cityscape. She stepped beside her, arms crossed, a bruise deepening on her cheek. "Why were you actually doing this?" she inquired. "You are a doctor." Britt initially declined to respond. She appeared exhausted, older than her years. "Because I understand what it's like to live under a microscope. People like Carter believe they can do whatever they want, and most of the time they are correct. I believed I might be able to halt one of them." "Only one?" Jocelyn nodded slowly. "I want in." Britt looked at her, shocked. "You don't know what you're saying." "I am not stupid. I understand this is not a game. But someone needs to stand up." "You did. Now I will too." Britt eyed her for a long time before exhaling. "You remind me of your mom." "I'll take that as a compliment." "She'll kill me if she finds out." "She'll have to get in line," Jocelyn joked. They stood silently, the wind tugging on their garments. Port Charles was waking up, unknowing that beneath the surface, a new partnership had formed. An odd kinship born in fear, fire, and mutual resistance. Whatever happened next, Jocelyn knew one thing. She was not going back to the sidelines. Not ever again. In the weeks that followed, things changed quickly. Britt's evidence led to multiple arrests. Carter disappeared. But the scheme had been uncovered and dismantled. The hospital acknowledged Britt's bravery but did not reinstate her. There were too many questions and risks. She transformed into a ghost, working in the shadows and watching. Jocelyn also altered. She began training self-defense, first aid, and tactical reading. Jason noticed. Carly noticed. Even Trina and Dex noticed, but didn't press her for explanations. She wasn't the same girl who grieved over her first breakup. She was ferocious now, hungry and driven. But the danger was not gone. Carter was not gone. When Jocelyn returned to her apartment one night, she discovered a white package beneath the door. Inside was a photo of her and Britt from that night in the alley. There's no message. No signature. Just a photo. She stared at it, the weight of the threat sinking into her gut like lead. The game was not over. It was only beginning. But now she has Britt. Jocelyn sat on the edge of the Metro court pool, her legs slipping into the cool water while her thoughts raced. The city buzzed behind her, but nothing penetrated the maelstrom inside her thoughts. Everything had changed and she had no choice but to explain herself, first to herself, then to Trina, and last to someone even more important, Gio. Jocelyn recognized that her silence was no longer protecting anyone. She did not want to betray him. Gio had trusted her when no one else would, but he was now on a downward spiral, and if he continued, he may destroy everything he'd achieved. Jocelyn had discovered a secret that had the potential to disrupt a quiet but dangerous partnership in Port Charles. When she saw the file stashed inside a folder labeled with Sonny's name, she knew Gio wasn't just dabbling in his family's business. He was swimming headfirst into the fire they'd all warned him about. But before she could approach him, Jocelyn had to be open about her own motivations. Perhaps she wasn't simply concerned about Gio being wounded. Perhaps she still believed in who he could be. Still felt he could break free from the legacy that everyone else appeared to accept as inevitable. When Trina asked what was going on, Jocelyn attempted to deflect. But Trina had been her best friend for too long to accept flimsy explanations. So sitting in her dorm room with the curtains shut and her voice quiet, Jocelyn unloaded everything. Gio had been watching Ava. He had pictures, timestamps, and files. Jocelyn prayed that he wasn't intending to damage her, but rather because someone had instructed him to keep an eye on her. And that person could be linked to something deeper and far more frightening. He said he was just doing someone a favor, Jocelyn said. But this does not feel like a favor, Trina. Feels like a test. Like he's trying to prove something. Trina leaned closer, her face furrowed. To whom? I do not know. Perhaps Sonny. Perhaps Drew. Maybe even Jason. The last name caused both of them to halt. Jason had returned to Port Charles, but not as they recalled. His presence was like a shadow. Familiar but darker. Less defined. More unpredictable. And if Gio was attempting to approach him, Jocelyn was concerned about the consequences. Jason didn't tolerate fools or disloyalty. And then there was Ava. Jocelyn had also sensed a shift in her. Ava was not easily outmaneuvered, but she had gotten more defensive recently. Less flirting and more strategy. She was usually 2 steps ahead, smiling sweetly while mentally planning how to harm someone. Jocelyn had seen her like this before years ago, when Ava twisted her way out of a conflict with Nina and Carly all at once. That same cutting edge was returning, but this time Ava was protecting something personal, and someone. According to rumors, Ava had a backup plan in case things between her and Sunny went bad. No one knew if they were actually over. They had gotten closer during the tumult of Sunny's recent mental breakdown, but Ava was not the sort to rely solely on emotions. She sought security. In Ava's world, security was typically wrapped in blackmail, secrets, and leverage. Jocelyn thought Ava knew more than she let on. About Gio, Jason, and what Drew had been up to behind closed doors. Everyone seemed to be circling each other, waiting for the first error so they could pounce. But Gio was the one on a tightrope, not knowing how far he could fall. His secret extended beyond observing Ava. Jocelyn remembers the night she discovered the flash drive. It was not even well hidden. It's almost as if he wanted it discovered. Inside, there were not just surveillance photos but also audio recordings, conversations in the gallery, phone conversation snippets. One that chilled her to the bone was Ava's voice, speaking to someone she dubbed the fixer. You get me the leverage and I'll get you the name. He won't even notice it coming. Jocelyn couldn't determine who he was. Was it Sunny? Jason? What about Gio himself? She didn't know where to turn because approaching Sunny would be perilous. He might interpret her meddling as betrayal. Jason would just question how she acquired the flash drive, and revealing Gio could destroy him. But what about keeping quiet? That might devastate her, and Gio in a different way. So she decided she would confront Gio. She discovered him near the docks, where he enjoyed walking late at night. He claimed it was a habit to calm his mind, but Jocelyn thought he was using those walks for something else: meetings, drops, and surveillance. When she approached, he was leaning on a piling and looked out at the black water. You're not alone anymore, Gio, she added calmly. He turned, shocked, but did not speak. I understand about the flash drive. I know about Ava. I know you're working for someone. Or perhaps attempting to impress them. Jocelyn's repetition of Ava's line about the fixer caused him to lower his shoulders, despite his initial attempt to look dumb. The mask broke. It wasn't supposed to get this far, he said. I just wanted to prove that I could manage it. That I wasn't merely a youngster with a well-known surname. She inquired. He paused. Jason. He's testing me. Or at least I believe he is. He asked me to babysit Ava. I was told there were things about her that Sunny needed to know, but I didn't hear from him. I felt if I did it correctly, I'd gain his trust. Maybe I can carve out something for myself. Jocelyn's heart fell. What will happen if Ava finds out? I do not know. She scares me. She should. They stood still, the sounds of the city enveloping them. Jocelyn wanted to be outraged. She wanted to shout at him for being reckless and bringing her into this mess. More than that, she noticed something raw in his eyes. Regret. Fear. Loneliness. You're not like them, Gio, she explained gently. You don't have to be. But maybe I want to be, he said. Just enough to survive, Jocelyn said, stepping closer. Then you're already losing. Meanwhile, Ava was putting together her backup plan. Her gallery had always been more than simply a place to display art. It was a fortress. A realm of secrets and shadows. Tonight, she met with someone in the back room. A woman in her mid-30s, elegant and polished. Former WSB employee. Currently working independently. You said you had insurance, the woman stated. Ava handed her a manila envelope and said, I'm here to collect. Inside were copies of Joe's surveillance footage, the one she allowed him to record. Everything had been set up. From the beginning. Tell Jason I know he's watching, Ava advised. Tell him that if he moves against me, I will burn everything. Including what's left of Sunny's empire. Understood. And if he asks who gave you this, Ava said with a smile, tell him it came from someone who used to love him and still might. Back at the hostel, Trina listened as Jocelyn recalled her argument with Gio. She spoke very little at first. Just listened. But her thoughts were already racing. "What are you planning to do?" she inquired finally. "I do not know. I believe Gio is trying to solve things on his own. But if Ava is ahead of him, she usually is, then maybe we need our own plan B." Trina arched her eyebrow. "Do you mean us?" Jocelyn nodded. "Yeah, you, me, and possibly Spencer." Triana scoffed. "He's off in Paris pretending to be royalty. He still has ears here. And loyalty, if not to Sunny, then to someone." Trina pondered it. "If we are going to get involved, we must be smart. This isn't high school drama anymore." "I understand. But I'm not going to stand by and watch Gio become someone he's not." Meanwhile, in another section of town, Gio stood alone in a hotel room. The flash drive was gone. Ava's files were gone. All that left was a decision to dig deeper or walk away. He picked up the phone and dialed. "I need to see Jason," he explained. Now, the game has changed. Alliances were shifting. No one, not even Ava Jerome, understood what would happen next. But Jocelyn did. Because this time she wasn't just watching. She was prepared to fight.